Hey there, welcome to Gals Get Real, where real women, real stories, and real talk come together. I'm Meghan.
I'm Kristin. Between us, we have 9 adult children with 6 daughters. Let's open up the conversations we never had with our moms and flip the script with the kind of connections we want with each other and our daughters.
We're here to laugh, cry, and dive into all the things, from everyday shifts to the curveballs and life pivots, and the messy, magical moments that make us who we are. How exciting to be here. I cannot believe that we actually got our act together to start this podcast. We've been talking about it for 9 months or a year.
Yeah, just about a year now. There were definitely a couple seeds planted along the way, but I love to go back to one New York City evening. We were out to dinner, and it was you, me, 2 of your old friends, one of which I had been connected with in a previous life.
Yeah,
so
2 of my favorites.
Yeah, truly. And mine now, too.
Yes.
And what did you say? Between the 4 of us,
So between the 4 of us, we actually have 13 girls, which is
impressive
nuts.
In itself.
But 9 out of our 13 girls were there. So it really was just such a treat, and
from the moment we all
such
started
a fun,
showing
awesome
up
night.
at different times, like just meeting, and there were hugs just from the start.
Everyone was coming from their different jobs, excited to see each other.
It was special. So as I remember it, we had the 4 of us, we had the 9 young women who were our daughters, and we sat our peer group at one end and all the girls collected at the other end, which is not atypical when you go out to dinner, moms and daughters, right?
Totally.
And what I loved about it for me personally was I was looking down at all these just amazing girls thinking, wow, we're all so happy. Well, mixed emotions too, right? But we all felt so good to be there, and just seeing them excited to talk amongst each other. But then it gave us time to talk too.
Oh, yes. And we had some interesting conversations.
Oh my God, like quickly. First of all, thank you, because again, so nice to meet, particularly the one I had not met before.
Yes.
And the conversation just very quickly got raw and real. Right?
Yes. We were talking about all the things.
We were.
And some of them will be for a different episode, but we can share some things we discussed. I mean, my girlfriend basically was saying how when she went for her first job interview, her mom said, okay, well, when you walk in the room, make sure that you hike up your skirt.
She did say that.
Before you sit down.
Oh my gosh, I wasn't sure where you were going with this.
Our girls would be horrified if we ever said anything even remotely like that.
Could you imagine?
No, I mean, my girls would give me a piece of their mind for sure.
Right, but listen, no judgments, because that's just the optics at the time. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a real look into what the workplace looked like back then for young women starting out.
Yes, and I'm sure many a mom said a version of that to their daughters. They wanted their daughters to get the job and to succeed, and
a lot of value was placed on that part of the way a woman presented herself.
Exactly. Yep.
And just the fact that, I mean, gosh, give the mom credit. At least she was honest and open about her advice.
Yes.
But just what a different world.
Oh, such a different world.
Thankfully, right? Speaking of women getting out there and trying to be independent, my mom was sort of thrust into that with her divorce.
And what year was that?
Yeah, this was back in the 70s. So if you think about it.
So divorce was not common then?
I would say not, right?
No.
I mean, how many people did you actually know in your neighborhood divorced? Maybe a television series talked about it at one point or another.
Yeah, no, I didn't know. My parents didn't have many friends that were divorced.
Right, exactly. I don't even think as an industry or a space for resources that it was very sophisticated yet. Because, I mean, my mom describes it like even finding attorneys, right, to help you through it, or navigating the court system. It just wasn't a thing yet.
That's interesting.
Which is, again, a topic for another time. But it really did, to see my mother with very few friends doing the same thing, out there dating again. I mean, she met my dad in high school. So very, very challenging.
And daunting.
And daunting.
And nerve-wracking and all the things.
And all the things. And then to watch my dad on the flip side, not really doing what you would picture typical dating, because he was coming out of the closet, so to speak. So he was also...
And that must have been so hard for him back then. Because it's interesting, actually, when you break it down, that now divorce is so common. I don't know the exact stats, but maybe 50% or a version of that. And thank goodness people are more comfortable coming out of the closet. I know it's hard, but just so much more acceptable. And that's a real sort of positive in terms of, you know, just the changes that have happened from generation to generation. But for your dad, and weren't you from a small town?
And I was from a small town. I mean, we kept it secret. You know, listen, if you remember the news, even go back 10 years, 15 years, maybe, the news was still portraying, right, these situations, particularly in small town USA, being very difficult.
Yes.
That kind of transition and acknowledgement. And certainly we had that. I mean, I don't know that.
And there was the AIDS epidemic. I mean, there was so much at that time.
A lot of factors, and many of those affected our family. Again, more later on that. But I do think that having open conversation, allowing people to be more real about these sort of things, it really benefits everybody, not just the person going through it. Because, you know, you're going to hide more if you're feeling embarrassed, if you're feeling not accepted.
Definitely.
And I think that certainly came to play in my family's situation.
Definitely.
But what else did we talk about? I feel like your other friend had a really interesting thing to say, too.
So my other friend, it was sort of fascinating. Her parents got divorced, but her mom, it was a very amicable, lovely divorce, if you can even say that. I think it genuinely was.
Yeah.
But her mom was ahead of her time. She worked. She was always out there working.
Good for her.
Hustling. Good for her is right. And so my girlfriend, who's the youngest of four, found herself sort of, you know, doing a lot on her own. You know, she'd be home, her mom would be working, her mom
level of independence she had.
Yes, at a young age. And her experience was very different than her older sister, who was the oldest of four, because the parents were married. But basically, my girlfriend...
I love that topic too, by the way. Not to interrupt you, but the sibling order, birth order.
Yes, that's an
really
interesting one.
Because you've talked about that in your own family situation.
Yes.
We can talk about that later.
We can come back to that. But I think that she felt like, you know, her mom couldn't be at a lot of things. She was a great mom, but she couldn't be at a lot of things because she was working all the time. And my friend made sure that she was at everything. So the other interesting things that we discussed came around a little bit to your own personal experience. Because if your mom was working and she wasn't around a lot, perhaps that was your priority to
100%
be home all the time. You are where you come from, and your experiences
affect. And sometimes they put you on the same lane, and sometimes they have you go in the opposite direction and pivoting, right? And I think, and this is a good segue to switching the conversation over to the younger generation, but I think lots of the conversations we've had with them in general, speaking more globally, is your generation raised you guys. Your generation was raised a certain way by your parents. You guys just like flip-turned it on us, and you became really involved, or, you know, making all of our decisions for us, or helicoptering or whatever. And is that even a word? Sorry.
Yes, helicopter parent.
Okay.
100%. I mean, I think that the girls, so basically what happened is we turned it over and we said, so what have you guys been discussing in your little focus group at the other end of the table?
Yeah.
And so they had a long list of things that we're going to get into a little bit, and we're going to read them exactly how they were sort of presented to us.
Yes, because
they had actually
they were presented to us. By the end of that
organized. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. We had more than enough information to go on. But coddled, back to your helicopter parent, they described themselves as being coddled, which I thought was interesting. They understood that our parents were way less involved. It was like, go play and come back at dinner time. Not a lot of organized activities, all the things. And I mean, we had our kids very overscheduled, and we knew sort of where they were at all times. But the fact that they recognized that, I thought was interesting.
It does. And I've heard them say, you know, I wonder if we're going to hit that balance, right?
Yes.
Like any movement. The pendulum goes way to the other side. Really, eventually, everybody kind of wants equilibrium, but how long does it take that pendulum to like
to swing back, and where does it stop?
That's right.
So a few of the other things they talked about, one was emphasis on independence. They're single longer. They're very focused on building a career. And the cost of living was another one. I mean, it's just so much more expensive in this day and age than it was
I almost
for
feel
us.
like that's the reasons that they do stay independent for a little bit longer. Even if they're heading down the marriage track, they still want to make sure that they're prepared financially for what's coming.
Yes, they're very focused on financial security.
I was surprised about that when I first heard that. I think a year ago, that was one of the first things that came up when we first started talking about all this.
Yes, yes. And they also said, not to interrupt, but they also said, our generation, I think you had kids a little older, but I mean, I was so young. I think I was pregnant at 25, had my first child at 26, and I think I had my fifth by the time I was 33 or something crazy. And they were saying that you guys got married younger, you had kids younger, and they said most of their friends are not even close to getting married before 30 or early 30s. So that was sort of a big difference as well.
Well, and I also thought on that note, one of the reasons they pointed to with this whole change up is the fact that, their grandparents, in some cases, were the American dream, the first generation.
I loved that. I loved that they were reflecting.
Their great-grandparents, let's say. And so they were looking at really that change in talk about generational change. And this is a young country. That's not been that long ago.
No.
And how they were saying we in many cases grew up to maybe go to college. And in some instances, we were the first to go to college, or maybe our parents were, and how we were more mobile. We moved to other towns, perhaps, than the ancestors before us, with access to different resources than perhaps their grandparents.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was a really interesting point. That doesn't even talk to some of the modern day changes. Like
social media. I mean, they talked about that. They said there's so much pressure with social media, the comparative pressure, the influence that social media has over them. I mean, if you think about it, so much of it is not real. So much of it is, or you don't know what's real versus what's not real. I think that's
what it is. It could be real. And certainly many people are authentic, but you just don't know because everything's presented to you over a screen.
Well, yeah, and there's
not real time necessarily.
Yes, and there's a lot of great stuff that can be learned and people are sharing. And on some level, it's amazing and wonderful. But on another level, I mean, they're sort of watching people do all these things. So the expectations are so high. I think there's a lot of filters that go on even with these 20-somethings, which seems completely nuts to me. Because if you don't think you look good in your 20s, man, it's kind of all downhill.
Just wait to the products you need when you're our age.
Oh my gosh, I feel like it's like a fighting battle to sort of maintain. But I thought that their honesty on that was really interesting. They said they don't feel as though they live in the moment, which is sort of sad. And they feel that they are... Yeah, they're just kind of looking and seeing. And I think that's sort of an unfortunate thing because we've lost the art in some ways of conversation.
Which is what we're trying to bring back. And also remember, this is happening at a time for them when they're already going through changes with their friendships. So even if all of their friendships were just right in front of their face, it still would be a big change up. You remember that in your 20s? I mean,
yes.
You leave a situation where you're used to being surrounded by your friends, doing similar things. And all of a sudden, as Mel Robbins says, you scatter.
Yes.
Right?
And people peel off and they move
and different life stages, different decisions.
And friendships ebb and flow.
That's it.
And that's very similar to our stage in life. I feel like people are starting to, move someplace for the winter, or their grandkids are someplace and they want to be closer to them. It's a little bit of a similar...
We're making those changes.
Yes.
Versus when we were just raising our
transitions, right?
In our hometowns, in our family. And some of the exact words they used were, it's generally how confusing your 20s can be, including success, how to define it and compare your success to others, growing apart from friends, as we said, and accepting that it's natural and healthy. That's the other thing too, because if you've got that feeling coupled with watching social media. It doesn't really always appear like all your friends, that it's natural and healthy to be separate, because you see the shots of your friends when they're together.
Yes.
And they're traveling here and there, or they're having another bachelorette, trip this way and that way.
Oh, that's another topic. The weddings have gotten so insane. Between the bachelorette. I mean, it's endless. We have got to have
we have to
conversation about that, because we
Maybe
got
we'll
into
have
that
them
with
run
them.
that one, because
yes.
that is just
that's a great idea, because I don't even know the craziness that's going on. It's all just surprises me.
So speaking of face-to-face, I love that earlier that same day in the city, you went out and did one of your interviews where you go to strangers, women.
Yes.
And you approach them with just a simple question, right? It's a prompt of some sort. I found it so great that after asking strangers those questions, that there you were sitting across from some young women you have known their whole lives, right?
Yes, some of them since they were born.
Right.
Definitely.
Right. And so when's the last time you actually asked them a general prompt like that you would be willing to go out into the city, ask a complete stranger?
Yep.
And then you flip-turned it and asked somebody you've known their whole life. We would sometimes assume that we would already know the answer, right?
Yes.
Or we would have a free-flowing conversation without prompting it. And I loved that you did that, because it just opened up the conversation.
Totally. And it's interesting because unless your child or your daughter is, in a fight with a friend or interviewing for a job, obviously then you have the conversations. Well, what was upsetting to you? Talked about the interview. What did you do well? What didn't you do well? But
doesn't always go deeper than that, does it?
No, and it's circumstantial for what's going on in their life. This was more of an overview of emotions and feelings and fears, concerns, just growing up in this day and age, which can be very stressful and daunting for these kids. It's not
100%. And letting them be vulnerable.
Yes.
Because I feel like once you connect on that level, those insecurities, not that they go away, but they come out actually, and they get addressed, and then they can be used in healthy ways to connect with others, not necessarily compete with others or hide from others. And that's the kind of conversation that went down that day. That's why that sticks out in my mind.
Oh my God, it was amazing. And it just brings me back to my little interviews. It's shocking. There's the people that tell you to get out of here, or they don't really say that, but they're like, I'm in a hurry, or I don't want to be filmed. But so many people will stop and answer these questions in such a thoughtful, interesting way. And I've interviewed older women, younger women. This one girl that I recently, and by the way, the most interesting conversations, then my girlfriends and I have such an interesting conversation for 15 or 20 minutes after that. Women really want to open up and they want to share. One young girl who is adorable, I don't think I've posted her yet, and she's heading off to an amazing college, had such an interesting answer. And I asked her what she wished more women said out loud. And she said, I wish they talked about their insecurities. So that was a pretty deep answer.
There you have it.
Right? She said, I think it's beautiful when other women talk about their insecurities, because we all have them. And then it just makes it so much more relatable. You can all of a sudden be like, I felt this way because I'm a little insecure about this. So women at our age have insecurities, their age. A lot of strangers on the street go very deep quickly. And I like to keep it to like a minute. But if we went on for 15 minutes, the amount they would share with a complete stranger is a little fascinating. Now, with our daughters, we would assume that we knew all of this and they're very close friends. But the truth is, you have to ask the questions.
You do. And be open to the answers.
Correct. Because it's not always what you want to hear, sister.
Like often not. But
exactly.
It's all good learning.
No, it's amazing, but I've had and this is also for another episode, I've had my daughters tell me things where I'm like, oh, really?
Yes.
I don't remember it that way.
I had a conversation like that just recently, as a matter of fact.
So we were just talking about interviews and questions. So I got a good one for you.
No, you do not.
I do.
Oh, here we go.
What has been a recent, what the actual F moment for you?
Oh, what the actual F on the question? Oh my gosh. Okay. And it was definitely a what the actual F moment, because I'll tell you what, I did not see it that way at all, like ever in my memory.
It is fascinating how we totally sometimes have completely different memories of the exact same situation.
Yeah.
I've had the same thing with my daughters for sure.
And so I had to really exercise that ability to just let her feel what she was feeling.
And I think that's great. I also think that it's always better if you wait. Literally, I've learned the hard way from different situations that I have not handled well, that it's just better to sit on it for 12 to 24 hours because
Boy,
you
that's
just
what
have
they
better
say.
perspective. And it really has helped me, not always, but then you can decide if you're still really upset about it after that time period, then
Readdress.
right. Did you ever
I
talk
did.
about that or go back to
I
it?
did.
Or?
And
Good.
it was a different kind of conversation, certainly than it would have been if I hadn't
In the moment.
zipped my mouth shut.
Exactly.
Okay, my turn.
Okay.
Gotta come
I'm
up with a
ready,
question
sister.
for you. I'm going to pull from the catalog that you've asked in the city. Let's see here. No, actually, I like this one. A time, recently or not, when you just needed to feel a lift. Could be a minor lift or major, just a lift.
Well, that's a good question. I've never asked that question, actually. Maybe I'll start asking that one.
Good.
So I have to say, when my youngest daughter went to college,
Yeah.
I have 5 children, and I could not get my head around the fact that it was the end of an era. I had spent all these years raising these kids, and I really didn't prepare for it at all. I don't know if you can prepare, but I was sort of in denial that it was even coming. I wish I had done something. And so when she left, I was just genuinely so sad. I mean, it was a bit of a trifecta of aging parents, effing menopause, which
that M word.
that was not easy for me. And then empty nest, which I don't like that word either, but her going to college. And I really
Well, and then by the way, they surprise you and they don't really leave your nest empty for very long.
Yes, they do end up coming back. A lot of them do come back. But in that moment, I just felt like stuck. I just couldn't imagine that this part of my life was over and what was I going to do with the
It's a
next
great
part.
way to say it, stuck.
I was so stuck.
Because that is when you need a little lift.
And stuck made me sad. So it was adorable. I mean, so many of my friends were amazing. My 2 older daughters would literally check in on me on the regular because they really knew. And look, some of my friends were traveling. They were here, there, and everywhere. They're like, you're going to be fine. It's going to be all good. And then other friends related and felt exactly the way that I did. So I was grateful.
Everybody had a little different experience with that, right?
Absolutely.
That's why it's so good to talk about it.
Yes. So I was grateful for anyone and everyone who gave me a lift at that time.
I love that. And I have one more question because this is one that you've used in your street interviews before, and maybe we'll just toss this one out to our listeners. But I love, like, just what's a piece of advice you would give to the world right now?
Okay.
Oh, good, you're going to answer it.
I am going to get a little emotional.
Yeah.
Because I think that the audience probably doesn't know this yet, but Kristin went through a major medical trauma, and it's made, life a little bit more challenging, should we say, or a lot more challenging. So I'm going to get emotional, but I think your positivity, I would say your positivity and your glass half full has really taught me a lot. And I'm not always the most positive, but that is something that I think we could all learn from you and really
Meghan.
work on. No, it's so true.
You know what? I don't know what you're talking about you not being positive, but you have all the energy in the world. You're always so open. And that's what
Open, but not always positive. I'll talk about anything, but.
And so, yeah, I think that being open and honest is a piece of advice I would give to the world right now. Thank you for that in you.
I love it. That's a great one. We know that there are literally a million podcasts out there, and so many of them are so good. We'd love for you to tell your friends, daughters, and all the women in your life to tune in, get real, and share all the things.
Yes, share your stories with us by DMing and following us on Instagram at Gals Get Real Pod. And please subscribe, like, and share wherever you get your podcasts.
Until next time, lots of love.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.